Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. The Public Service Commission, in partnership with the United Nations in South Africa and the University of South Africa, is commemorating the 2021 International Anti-Corruption Day under the theme, Your Right, Your Role, Say No to Corruption. The International Anti-Corruption Day is commemorated annually in recognition of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, which was signed in Mexico in 2003. South Africa is one of the signatories to the convention and ratified it in 2004. The Minister of Public Service and Administration, Ayanda Dlodlo, is delivering the keynote address. This is what she said earlier.
South Africa has a long-standing tradition to celebrate International Anti-Corruption Day, a day adopted under the United Nations Convention Against Corruption to be dedicated to raising awareness about the dangers corruption poses to the stability of a society and mobilizing political will to tackle this global issue. The theme for this year's event is Your Right, Your Role, Say No to Corruption. This motto ties perfectly in with the aims of the National Anti-Corruption Strategy, which was adopted to set South Africa on a road that is free from corruption and based on the values of integrity, transparency, and accountability, respect for the law, and zero tolerance for corruption. To achieve this, it is time for us to commit to uphold these constitutional values, but also other positive values at the macro level by government, business, and at a macro level by communities, families, and individuals. Such commitment will provide the necessary energy and drive to address corruption, as it will place the focus again on ethics and the role of each individual to act as a change agent for ethics. Our commitment to fight corruption is desperately needed. The United Nations Convention on Corruption, UNCAC, describes corruption as an insidious plague that has a wide range of corrosive effects on society. It undermines democracy and the rule of law, leads to violations of human rights, distorts markets, erodes the quality of life, and allows organized crime and terrorism and other threats to human security to flourish. In the South African context, Section 3 of the Prevention and Combating of Corruption Activities of 2004 defines corruption, among others, as the abuse of office for personal gain. As a country, we successfully fought apartheid. Now is the time to stand together to fight corruption, as this is plausibly one of the most defining struggles of our time. It is a priority fight precisely because there is far too much at stake while both developing and developed countries are battling with the scourge. Empirical evidence suggests to us that corruption hurts everyone, but the poor disproportionately, and also the youth. Because of this, South African government remains committed to eradicate corruption. Our government has put several programs in place for this purpose, directed by the National Development Plan. This plan envisages a South Africa with reduced levels of corruption by 2030 to be achieved through the National Anti-Corruption Strategy that serve as South Africa's blueprint to tackle corruption. Now, this anti-corruption strategy is a contact between the whole of society and focuses on addressing the root causes of corruption so that the citizens of South Africa can see a real change. When implementing the strategy, I urge the steering committee to quantify the cost of corruption to citizens and to interrogate the real cost of corruption to the state and also to our people. This includes the cost when government employees are booked off sick because of depression due to workplace bullying, because they said no to corruption. The cost of psychological trauma due to blowing the whistle and the impact thereof on the national health system, but also the cost to the state when these employees litigate against the state. But in that, we'll be able to determine what all our citizens have to bear in terms of this cost that corruption has put upon them. The coordinated fight against corruption is slowly but surely starting to pay off. One example of this is the cooperation between the Public Administration Ethics, Integrity, and Disciplinary Technical Assistance Unit, which I term DAO, South African Police Service and National Prosecuting Authority, where information is pooled, skills are transferred to stop public employees from conducting business with the state. Last month, in November, this cooperation resulted in the arrest and conviction of 2 public service employees conducting business with the state. And I must say, this must have shaken a lot of those who continue to do business with the state. Working together under the guidance of the Anti-Corruption Task Team in the Fusion Center, the Technical Assistance Unit that I spoke to about earlier is also contributing to identify public service employees involved in COVID-related corruption. That is the UIF fraud, social relief of distress grant fraud, and personal protection equipment fraud by identifying these employees in the registered cases, notifying their departments to take action against them, and monitoring that disciplinary steps are running concurrently with the criminal cases. What we have found so far is that only a handful of public service employees can be regarded as bad apples, but we cannot allow this group, however small, to spoil the barrel. The success of getting rid of in the public service from these elements depends on high levels of cooperation between all anti-corruption stakeholders. The fight against corruption is not only that of government. We have a role to play, business, our social partners, and most of all, we as individuals. Not paying a bribe to the policeman stopping me for speeding, or not paying a bribe to connect my electricity illegally, we as individuals contribute to the restoration of ethics in our society. When we say no to corruption loud and clearly, we get the message through that we have had enough. The importance of ethics in fighting corruption is aptly captured in the foreword to the National Anti-Corruption Strategy, where the President of the Republic, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, says, corruption, wherever it occurs, represents a decline in our value as a nation. If left unchecked, it poses a grave threat to our democratic values and our dream of being an ethical and developmental state. Honorable guest, Chairperson, fighting corruption is not a simple task. It's a fight that concerns everyone and requires everyone's involvement to prevent its manifestation or to react decisively to wrongdoing. It calls not just for the dedication of independent anti-corruption bodies in preventing, detecting, and holding corrupt officials accountable, but also for the active involvement of every citizen by saying no to corruption, not turning a blind eye and demanding transparency and accountability from those they vote into public office. The fight against corruption is never truly won or over. The fight against corruption therefore depends on citizens' awareness, support, and participation. The people are the first line of defense. Citizens are the drivers of accountability, reform, and change. It is therefore important to put citizens at the center of fighting corruption. Say no to corruption, use the existing hotlines to report those people who transgress, including public employees. For public service employees blowing the whistle on corruption, I want to unequivocally and openly state that I support you. I regard you as heroes and heroines of the struggle against corruption. If it was not for whistleblowers, we as a country would not have known of the level of rot facing us until it would have been too late. Now, because of these exposures, we have a chance to change the tide, and change we will. With this event of today, we want to empower our citizens, and especially the youth, to act against those who are corrupt, those who steal their future, to say no to corruption, build a culture of integrity and society, building a culture of integrity in society begins with the raising of our young ones, teaching them to say please. If it is not yours, you ask for it. If it is not given, you walk away. The child in the back of the car where a parent pays a police official a bribe necessarily is socialized to do the same one day when faced with a similar predicament. This learned behavior is then replicated in other situations. We must know that the knowledge, skills, and behaviors we pass on the youth will shape the country's future. Doing the right thing will help in our communities to uphold integrity, which is essential for preventing corruption. Engaging the youth in a conversation around corruption and its effects on society is thus critical to inspiring norms for integrity, ethical behavior, and equipping the youth with knowledge and skills to resist corruption, to expose it, and to demand from all of us accountability. This discussion necessarily requires an engagement on how corruption infringes on our constitutional rights and how it is shaping the future for those still to come, the children of our children and their children. Public integrity means doing the right thing even when no one is watching. When corruption and unethical behavior seem normal, we can lose sight of what public integrity is and why it actually matters. It's important to have discussions on ethics and corruption so that the public good is emphasized over private gain. When discussing public integrity, we give everyone involved the knowledge and skills to fight corrupt practices and thereby establishing a new behavioral norm and values for society. This will harness the youth's desire for fairness and equity, with the goal being to create a sustainable culture of integrity and a better future for all of us. As suggested by our president, to win the war against corruption, an ethical culture must be inculcated in our society. For that, we need participation of all citizens, and especially our youth, to selflessly strive to assist the state in maintaining a professional, ethical, principle-centered, and value-driven society. We need everyone to raise their hands and add their voice to transform our nation and to resolve the challenges of corruption we are facing today by committing to the constitutional values and principles and speaking against corruption all the time. I therefore urge you all as individuals to raise your voices against corruption during our International Anti-Corruption Day celebrations and beyond. Speak out against corruption. In the same call, I urge those in leadership positions to act ethically at all times. Create an ethical environment where everyone will know that ethical conduct is expected, but also rewarded. Ladies and gentlemen, as we reflect on this cancer of corruption today, may you as the citizens of our beautiful country, you as parents, you as youth, the future of our country, recommit yourselves to do more. I urge you to invite those close to you to join hands to shape a corruption-free future for our beloved country. I especially encourage the youth to engage on the issues of corruption in all spaces, especially on social media, and to encourage your friends and family to report corruption when they witness it. Let us put our hands together against corruption. Ngiyabonga.
And with that, a quick break as we chase the top of the next hour.